Coming up next.
So there are going to be times when a spouse or a partner is not on board with what you're doing, or what you want them to do, and that's going to be part of a bigger conversation in your relationship. But I say start with you, because it's still going to help you, even if your other person is not willing to do it. It's going to help you. It's going to help you prioritize and value and really start to understand the things that go on in your head when you're making purchases, right? I think like the easiest thing to say is the whole Amazon thing, like where you're just like add to cart, add to cart, add to cart. And I used to tell people, add it to your wish list, not your cart, right? Don't hit purchase. And then you get that dopamine, like the shopping thing, even though you're not actually buying.
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You are here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength, because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction: your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation, and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you. Welcome to the Faith Over Addiction podcast. I'm Tanya Gioia. I have the lovely privilege of speaking with Linda Grizely, and we're going to get tough and gentle on finances, because one of the things we know about addictive behavior, whether it be gambling, videos, substance, pornography, is money is often involved. Money is almost always involved. And for those of us that support loved ones dealing with addiction, often we wonder where it went, and even our skills are not there for budgeting. So Linda's going to talk to us about our money personality, how we manage that, shame, taking care of ourselves. She's just got the whole ball of wax. So Linda, give us a little bit more about yourself and maybe your own money story.
Sure. So I am I was a financial planner, a financial advisor, doing financial planning and advising for people. And I became super interested in the mindset and the internal obstacles that people had when I would meet with them. And that led me to eventually evolve into what I'm doing now, which is financial education for women. So I do education, and I market to women, but anybody's welcome. And one of those things that I do is talk to them about budgeting and how to stop putting themselves last and putting themselves on the budget so that they can be successful in their finances.
Most of us say budget and we go, ugh, never works. I try and I fail. I don't like failing. How do you help women look at this as something positive in their lives?
So one of the reasons that budgeting, why you have that reaction, is because it feels so restrictive, and there's so many controls. It's so controlling and restrictive. So I start with a concept that's called me money, and it's a simple idea, and it's where you put yourself as a line item on the budget. So you actually have an amount of money that you can spend on anything you want that's just for you. So for instance, this came about because my husband was spending too much money, but he had no idea that he was spending too much money because I handled the finances. So I said, I'm going to put you on a budget. And so I talked to him about it. I put him on a budget, and he said, oh, that's nice. You're giving me an allowance. So he's like telling the guys at work, oh, my wife is giving me an allowance. I got to get my allowance, joking around about it. And he, of course, said, are you going to put yourself on a budget? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I will get the same number as you. We live under the same household. We have the same lifestyle. I'll have the same number as you. We'll both live within the same budget. So the idea is that he goes on like a golf trip, and he goes on some fishing trips, and he's always like, it's just, this one thing, or it doesn't cost that much, but he doesn't realize what's going into it. So this was my way of saying, like, you need to track, and you need to understand what it's really costing you to go and do these things. So he started doing it, and I was worried that he was going to feel like he was restricted and that it wasn't going to work. And he's just like, no, I need more money than that. So I asked him after he'd been doing it for a few months, how is it going? He's like, it's fine. I was like, it is? I go, you don't feel restricted or anything? He's like, I'm just making better choices. I was like, oh, tell me more about that. So he said what he figured out was that, like, if he saw, let's say, a golf shirt that he wanted, he'd be like, oh, I can buy that golf shirt now, or I can wait and save that money and spend it towards a golf trip later. He's like, I'll go on the golf trip. I don't need, my 300th golf shirt or whatever it is. So he was just making better choices because he's choosing what he valued his money for. Like, is this worthy of my money or is it not? So because I gave him that little container of like, hey, just be more aware of what you're doing with your money, it was totally mind-changing for him. So for me, it did the complete opposite, because when I started having my me money, because I was always the person who wouldn't spend on myself. I'd be the one who's like, oh, I can't afford to go on that girl's trip. I can't afford that because I'm the one who wants to save for the future. I'm taking care of everything else. And like, I always just put myself last. So now that I have this money set aside, I feel free to buy things that I never would have bought for myself. So like, for instance, I had gone on this wine walk with some women that was just like a downtown thing. And while we were walking around downtown, I had picked up these little packets of this face stuff that was at this place that did facials. And so I was using these little packets, and I was like, oh my gosh, this feels amazing. But I would never spend that money on myself. Well, there was some point where I was like, wait a minute, I can do this. I can buy this. So I actually bought this for myself. I bought the whole face regimen, the daytime, the nighttime one, and it's amazing and I love it. But here's the thing. I'm in my second half of my 50s now. And I remember being in my 20s and putting like a face serum on my Christmas list for people. Like, I want this, but I would never buy it for myself. So we're talking like my entire life, right? Which hopefully will end up being half my life. But let's say that it's well over half of my life at this point. I lived with this, like, where I wouldn't spend the money on myself, right? And now that I have this me money bucket, like this way to frame it, I am spending money on myself. And so as I started to share this experience with other people and had them implement it, I realized that it works for no matter what your money personality is. I mean, I'm sure there's people where it doesn't, but they probably need more therapy and like higher level stuff if it's a money issue, like you said, gambling or something. That's a little bit different. But giving something intention and having thought behind it and being able to place value on what you're spending your money on is a huge mind shift. And so I believe that for both both my husband and I, and the people that I've talked to that have implemented this, it really is just empowering them and having them, like I said, be more intentional and place value on things. And it's really very much life changing as far as how they spend money. They start to understand themselves better.
That's fantastic. So you're doing this exercise and getting personal awareness. I do have to ask you a question. What if your spouse was not on board? Have you worked with women who their spouse is not getting on this train?
It happens. And I tell them, just do it for yourself. Like
And
figure it out for yourself.
how does that look?
So it's tough when a spouse won't get on board, right? And I feel like there's so many other layers to that I am definitely not qualified to get into.
Right.
Because it happens even in just financial planning in general, like talking to, which I don't do the financial planning part anymore, but even when I did that, there were people that were just completely like on opposite ends of money and talk. And there were times when people would actually like argue in front of you, and it's very awkward. But so there's all these different layers to that. So there are going to be times when a spouse or a partner is not on board with what you're doing, or what you want them to do, and that's going to be part of a bigger conversation in your relationship. But I say start with you, because it's still going to help you, even if your other person is not willing to do it. It's going to help you. It's going to help you prioritize and value and really start to understand the things that go on in your head when you're making purchases, right? I think like the easiest thing to say is the whole Amazon thing, like where you're just like add to cart, add to cart, add to cart. And I used to tell people, add it to your wish list, not your cart, right? Don't hit purchase. And then you get that dopamine, like the shopping thing, even though you're not actually buying. But now I say, like, no, you're thinking about it like, if I hit that button, it's coming out of this account and it's very structured. So if I have this separate account that it's coming out of, I'm much more aware of what's coming out of it.
How do you help women say it's okay? I'm going to keep a budget for me, because the me money is often a hard thing. The kids need this, the house needs that, something needs this. And the me money that I would have used to go to coffee with a girlfriend or do something of that nature suddenly disappears. How do you help them hold on to it?
Well, it shouldn't be suddenly disappearing, because they should open a separate bank account to put it in so that it is completely separate, right? So that's part of the key of it, is having a completely separate bank account for it, so that everything that is just for you comes out of that account. And everybody's number is going to be completely different, completely unique to them. So I wouldn't share your number with anybody, because they're not you. They don't have your mindset. They don't have your personality. They don't have your financial situation. It's going to be very, very unique and specific to each person. But by putting it in a separate account, it should not be disappearing. It should be there set aside for you. And that's part of the key. There's no sliding by. Now, another example that I like to give is, let's say that you're the person who lives on like sales or coupons, or you're like me, like there was a point in time, and well, I still live this a lot, where I would never buy anything unless it was on sale or I had a coupon. Like there's no point in paying full price for anything. And I still am that way, but it was a lot more before I had my me money. Now I'm like, well, if I have it and it's something that I want, I can justify it. But let's say that in the past I would buy, I'd want like a new shirt, but in the past I might over time buy like 10 new shirts for $10 and be like, I'd be able to justify $10 10 different times, but I would never be able to justify $100 for one shirt. Right. And I'm not saying that I've spent $100 on a shirt, but my husband's golf shirts are a lot of times that much money. But
Right.
But I'm saying like I probably never would have justified it, but I can justify $10 10 times, but I can't justify $100. So now that it's in the separate container, I can say I'm going to say no to all of those $10 ones, because there's $100 one over here I want really bad, and that's really the one I want. And so
Huge shift in concept. That's more. I have seen men do that more than women. To say, okay, I'm not going out to dinner, or I'm not buying these little things, or I'm not doing that because I want a big
purchase.
Yeah.
They have a tendency not to do the little purchases, is what I've seen. I don't know if you've seen it follow along gender lines, but that big purchase seems to be of more value to them. They'll wear the old shirt until it's rags and go, but I'm saving for the boat.
True. I mean, but the women do the same thing with different things. So I think there is some gender to it, just because genders have different, like, they lean towards a different personality maybe, but really the personalities like go across all genders. So yeah, but again, it's all about what they're valuing. So they're valuing, the boat over the clothing. So like they don't care what they look like, right? They care about these other things. And women might care more about what they look like and less about the other things. So but it really is just living within that me money of what do you value? And it's very different for different people. Like there's a financial person who does like a call-in show, like where people ask if they can afford something or not. And what she does is they tell her what they want, and they say, this is how much it costs. And she'll say like, well, how much do you make? And what do you have in saving? What do you have in savings? And what are you saving for retirement? And blah, blah, blah. And then this person will say like, no, you can't afford it. Or yes, you can afford it. But a lot of times she's saying, no, you can't afford it. But I'm saying, yes, you can, because if that's what you really want, then you just save up that money towards it. It's like, so the one episode is this person who wants a pair of designer shoes. And she says, my husband won't let me buy the shoes. Can I buy the shoes? And of course, this person is saying, no, you can't buy the shoes. But I'm saying, if you have, let's say it's a $700 pair of shoes, right? If you're setting aside that money and you're willing to give up all these other things because you really, really want that pair of shoes, then you can have the pair of shoes. But it also might be that you might realize that, I really don't want that pair of shoes that bad, because I want all these other things. So it's easy to say, oh, my husband will let me do it. And it's easy to call in and say, can I afford this? The answer is, yeah, you can afford it if you do it the right way, but you have to decide what you really value. What are you going to give up in order to do that?
It's interesting. What you're talking about is you're giving away your power to somebody else on this call-in show that you don't know, that you perceive as the answers, and you're letting them make the decision because for whatever reason. My main look at it is I don't want to be responsible. And what budgeting says is I am willing to be responsible. I'm going to be a responsible adult about this.
Yes.
What is the shame? What are the money stories that keep us from taking on that responsibility?
The biggest one I see with women is that they always put themselves last. And they're spending money on all the household things that they need, on their kids, all the things that they want for their kids. So that's why they end up putting themselves last, because they're like, well, there's nothing left for me. But what I'm saying is that there needs to be something for you. And to use the common thing is like, put your oxygen mask on first. Take care of yourself first. This is part of self-care. Like, and it could be something that you're buying for self-care. It could be, a yoga class, or it could be a massage, or it could be something like that a lot of people might look at as like I'm trying to think of that. I'm losing my track on words here, but they might think of it as like something that they would never spend money on. But if that's what makes you feel good, and that's what makes you feel better, like me with the face stuff, right? I would never have spent that before, but I'm like, I love it. And it makes me feel great. And I'm like, my face is on camera most of the time now. Like, it's important for my face to be the best it can be.
And what does that radiate to your family when you feel good?
Exactly.
Your spouse when you feel good. What are you displaying to your kids when, one, you put yourself always last, or you take care of yourself? Because you talk about the invisible cost of not taking care of yourself. What does that really look like?
Yeah, it's big, right? It really is big. Because it's one of those things where it's like, if you don't take care of yourself, like if you're stressed out at work or stressed out at home or whatever, if you're full of stress, if your life is full of stress and you don't take time out, and like I said, whether that be like treating yourself to a massage or a facial or going to a yoga class or whatever, if you don't take time to do something that makes you feel like you've been restored and cared for, then you're going to end up in the hospital, like, and paying medical bills that you don't want. You're better off paying it for something, anything that makes you feel restored. And in this case, I'm not necessarily talking about buying something, because that's like a quick, but spending that money on something that helps you to feel better overall and more relaxed, and get you back in the zone of out of the fear, the fight, flight, or freeze zone.
Yes. And when I look at it, sometimes I'm buying back time, right? If my washing machine isn't working, what am I doing? I'm going to the laundromat. That takes me enormous amount of time. If the car is not running right, enormous amount of time. Some of that is me money too, is I'm going to fix that so that I'm buying back time for myself. Or maybe even the luxury of all luxuries in my world is having a housekeeper. That's a huge luxury. I can work more, I can serve more, I can be at church more, I can do all those things if somebody else is taking care of those basic necessities in life. When you are talking about, here's the question that I love. What do you mean when you say you can't build a life you love on a budget you hate?
That's exactly what we're talking about here, is when you go through and you do your budget and you list, if you're budgeting and you're listing out all of your expenses, and you're listing everything that you pay for your housing, your utilities, your car, all the things that you need to do, and you're not putting a space on there for you, that's why most budgets are failing, because there's no room for the person. The person isn't even on the budget. It's all the stuff. You might budget for your kids, but are you budgeting for yourself? Are you saying, like, here's my me money, and this is what I get to spend on myself?
Talk to us about the personalities of money, our money personalities.
Yeah. So now the money personalities that I identified, there's 5 different ones. And actually you can find a lot of different money personalities out there if you just Google them. I don't know who created these, or if there's like a whole bunch of different ones. So, but I see in working with people, what I found is a saver, a spender, an avoider, a security seeker, and a risk taker. Saver, I was the one who was afraid to spend money on myself, right? I'm more practical. I like to stretch my dollar because I like to shop on sales and coupons. So I love a good deal. I might reuse things like that other people are tossing, or shop even at a thrift store sometimes. So I like deal. I like to be frugal, and I like to plan for my future, right? And like I said, the me money method is giving me permission to enjoy some money and not worry so much about what I'm spending. And then my husband would fall more under the spender. So he wants the stuff now. Like, he wants to enjoy now. He's older than me, and he's actually a year from retirement age right now. And he's still not worried about retirement because he wants it now. So by giving him the me money, which is how the whole thing started, was just to give him mindfulness around what he was doing. I didn't really necessarily want to restrict him. I didn't care that he was doing these things. I just wanted him to understand what he was spending and to have mindfulness around it. And it actually worked great. Yeah. So, and people, to be a spender, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're spending money just on yourself. It also could mean that you're generous and that you're giving. And in that sense, I want to also say that none of these personalities are bad. Like, they're all just you. They're all just the person. And one is not better than the other. It's just understanding how you react with money and what your relationship and personality is with money that helps you to better understand what you're doing and how you can work with it instead of against it. And I think that's where the budgeting comes in, and it works against you. Because for a saver to budget, for me, I would just keep putting everything in savings. Like, oh, we have extra money, let's put that towards, this retirement fund or our emergency fund. And I wouldn't be ever giving it to myself and saying I could spend it. And whereas my husband was like, oh, we got extra money, let's book a trip, So it's by having the frame around it really helps. Now, an avoider is somebody who doesn't even like to think about money. They're just like,
They're
it's
like,
complicated.
I'll deal with it later when the bill comes, all that stuff. I don't plan, I don't look at it.
Exactly. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. So I don't even want to go into all the reasons right now. But if you're an avoider and you implement the me money method, it's going to help you reconnect to that and be intentional. And then you can start to understand again, like what you've been doing and how you're making choices with money. So it's similar to the spender, but just because you're an avoider doesn't mean you're a spender. It just means that you're not really thinking about it as much. So
And some avoiders, can't they be always worried and anxious about money because they really don't know. They don't know where it is and what's happening, and they're disconnected from it.
That is so true. One of the things I found when I was doing financial planning is that people would come in and they'd be like, they'd be embarrassed and they'd be, like, I should know more by now. I should be further ahead by now. I just haven't ever done anything with it. And sometimes they're coming in like right before they're about to retire. And I'm like, why haven't you talked to anybody before? And they're like, I just didn't feel like it was right. So these are the avoiders because it's like they know they don't know anything and then they're embarrassed by it. So even just starting with something like the me money. And when I talk about starting with the me money and putting yourself as a line item on your budget, you can do the whole budget and list yourself, or you can just start with me money, because even doing the whole budget itself can be overwhelming for people. The other
security seeker.
Yeah, the security seeker. So this is when somebody it's above the saver, because this is someone who really loves knowing what to expect. They want to know they're going to be okay. They want routines. They want to plan ahead. They're rarely going to make an impulsive financial choice. So it's just a little bit more structured than a saver. So they want to know their future is safe, but they're also going to probably not be spending money on themselves. These are the ones I think you hear a lot about, where you have people that, live in like, broken down houses, and like they're older and they just never spent any money. And then all of a sudden they die. And then there's like this multi-millions of dollars. And people are like, oh, this person did this. Well, this is probably someone who just wants the security of knowing it was there. I mean, they probably could have, bought 10 new houses, but and knowing what was there, and they felt safe that if they ever needed anything, they could. And so by carving out a me money will help them have some flexibility without losing their footing, because it will be part of the plan, and that's what they like.
It's so interesting. I was listening to a podcast with Mr. Wonderful off of Shark Tank, and his statement was, I keep 5 million. Most of us will never reach that, but I keep 5 million in a cash bank account. Otherwise, I don't feel comfortable I mean, he does billion-dollar deals, but even he has this security mentality around money of, I keep this over here very liquid in case something could happen. So it's really interesting to me that this is not just about, the person who is not spending on themselves, because he does spend on himself, but it is also, it's a mentality that this keeps me safe.
Yes. But here's the thing, you have to put that 5 million in perspective too, because everybody needs an emergency fund that's liquid that they can get to. Everybody needs that. I mean, to the sense that you can actually start saving for that, you should have 3 to 6 months of your expenses in an emergency fund. But a security seeker will take it higher than that. But we don't know what his expenses are. When he's saying he has 5 million, I don't know what his expenses are. What house payments does he have? What car payments does he have? What rental properties does he have?
That may not cover them all. That may not cover all his assets at the moment.
It might not, because if he has rental properties, what if all of a sudden all those rental properties are vacant? What is he paying mortgages on those? Chances are, if he's a financial guy, he's probably leveraged. He probably didn't pay cash, because that's not the way you make money when you're into real estate like that. Or I don't, I'm not even sure what he's got, but I'm just saying, like, when you hear somebody else's number, like, there's really no perspective behind it sometimes.
Just listening to the podcast, it sounded like he grew up pretty impoverished, and that the thought of being without money, there was more mentality to it than just here's the money.
Yeah.
It's very striking to me that you can literally have the world at your fingertips with the kind of worth he has already created, and still maintain that mentality.
Yeah. And that's huge. That's a really big part of your money mindset, which leads into your personality. But your money mindset is actually a completely different thing, because there's stories that you live with inside of you that you don't even know are there, that were created from the way you grew up, from conversations with money, from the way the people around you reacted to money. You know, if your parents fought about money, guess what? You probably don't like to talk about money.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that really does play into it also.
So as you're talking with women, what's some of your favorite small steps? You said the me money, to set that aside in a separate account. What are some other favorite small steps to maybe even get to the me money? If they're saying, I just can't squeeze the budget any more than I've got.
Yeah. Well, so the first step I take them through in defining their me money is actually pay attention to what you're spending already on yourself. So even without going through a budgeting exercise or anything, just track what you spend that's on something that's solely for you, whether that's, you know, a latte, whether that's a piece of clothing, whatever that is. If you're the only one who really benefits from it, keep track of that, even if it's just for a week or two, and then figure out what that is. And then that's your me money. That's a simple way to start. The me money number can always be changing, because it's going to change as your financial situation changes and as things ebb and flow in your life. Like, it's not like you set it and forget it forever, but just starting to be aware of what you're doing, right? So there's awareness in what you're spending. And then the next thing is to be aware of what you're feeling when you're spending.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I making this purchase? And how is this purchase going to make me feel after? You know, what am I feeling before and what am I feeling after? You know, because I do think that, like, that latte that you got, like, there's a feeling before and there's a feeling after.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a coffee drinker, but I mean, it's definitely like, you're like, like, you know what I mean? So I'm just saying, like, and even when if you're, you know, add to cart on Amazon, like, what are you feeling when you're doing that? And then if you can also just move it to wish list instead of cart, you know, but just that idea that you're getting that rush that you're looking for, but at the same time, you're aware of it and you're understanding why you're doing it.
Well, and I'm right there with you. I add a dozen things to my cart and then I go back and I delete them all. And the other thing that has really filled my need for shopping is actually grocery shopping. It's bright, it's colored, I get to make choices, and it fits within a budget that I'm using. So I use that as an experience of, I'm not deprived. I mean, there are plenty of countries where that's not. My sister went to school in Canada. She said they don't have the brands all over the place and the expansive piece of that. So I think it's also really interesting that you're talking about looking for it where you are already doing it. Where are you already spending money on yourself? Where are you already feeling this freedom? And the part about the 10 shirts versus the $100 shirts, how do you walk women through seeing, okay, you're spending a lot multiple times on this, whereas if you just bought this one thing at a much higher price, how would that change your feeling about it? What would that look like to you?
Right. Well, and some women, like, there's times though, I still like the $10 shirts. Like, I'm not even saying that there is a $100 shirt that I want, but I'm just saying, like, if there was, because I've done it with things. I've mostly done it with shoes, where, like, I really want the more expensive pair of shoes, but I'm like, I'll buy these inexpensive shoes, and then I'll, you know, they won't be as comfortable or whatever. And eventually I'll probably end up buying the more expensive one. And so I'll have wasted money, but
And time and effort and
yeah,
decision making and resource. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into this.
yeah. So it's really just, it's, what do you value and what's important to you? And even if that's what I'm saying, even if you're the person who likes the, you know, $10 shirts, which I have plenty of, there's still once in a while where I see something where I'm like, oh, that's really nice, I'd really like to have that. And I wouldn't buy it, you know, because I'd be like, I can't justify spending that. But now I know that if I do say yes to all these $10 things, that when that one bigger thing comes along, whatever it is, I might have to say no to it too. So now I might say no to these other little things because I know that there's something bigger coming along later.
Well, and all of this I perceive, Linda, is wrapped up in your self-worth. That if you feel like your self-worth comes from giving, serving, which are not bad things, but that's the only place you get self-worth, then doing something for yourself will be counterintuitive. How do you help women work through that?
It's different for every person, right? So it's really just a conversation with them. So most of what I do right now is group coaching, and through the courses and the community that I'm building, I do one-on-one coaching too. But it's really just helping them to understand the whys behind it all, and really just doing introspection. So there's journaling, introspection, all the financial courses that I teach, financial foundations, do-it-yourself financial planning, the Me Money course, they all have the real life mindset stuff and like mind blocks that you might see come in, all weaved throughout them, because it's such a big part of our lives. And you said something earlier about something being in your life all the time, and money is always there. It's like there as much as we breathe, because no matter what we're doing, we're spending money. Even when we're sleeping, we're spending money. We're heating our homes, we're cooling our homes, we've got appliances running, we've got phones that we're charging, or whatever it is that we're doing. There's always money coming and going, right? It's always there. It's like ever present.
How can we find these courses, your website? You're getting ready to launch a podcast. And if someone is saying, gosh, I've tried this before and I just keep ending up feeling like I can't do money. I don't know how to do money. What would you suggest that they start?
I'm saying that there's a good chance that the reason you feel like you can't do money is because you're not taking into consideration you. You're taking someone else's advice about money itself and trying to put a square peg into a round hole. So once you add your own self into the picture and you start to understand you, is when it will start to make sense.
And what course would they start with? Is there an article, or you're getting ready to launch a blog? You're getting ready to launch a podcast. Where should people start on your website, and where do we find that?
Yeah, I would say go to my website because everything is there. So it's the hub of everything. So it's lindagriz.com, LINDAGRIZ.com. And everything is on there. Courses and coaching and communities are all under courses. There's a resources page where you can take a money personality quiz to figure out what your money personality is. You can also have more than one money personality. Just want to say that, like, I have two separate ones, one for me personally and one for my business, and they're complete opposite ends of the earth. Because I can justify spending money on my business because it's an investment, right?
Right.
Justify spending money on myself.
Says, think about that. How many more trainings can you buy and still afford to run your business at the same time? Yes.
Exactly. You get it. You've been there, Tanya.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's where they can find me. And it's choose your own adventure. You can buy a pack that has everything. You can buy just individual courses that, this is the one I want to focus on right now. So they can find it all there.
And this could be part of your Me Money, your investment.
It could be,
making sure that you are looking at money. You have maybe bad about money, but are you clear about money? So Linda, thank you so much of coming on and clearing that up. And the key thing I want to put out there is you can start, whether your partner, your spouse, your children, anybody else is on board, and it will have a ripple effect. You don't need to push it on anybody. You can start all by yourself. That's how my husband and I got to Dave Ramsey. I was already budgeting, and he's like, things are going better. Why are things going better? And it began to roll out that way. That's your story too. You started with this and you set that up, and then the family was running better. So Linda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope, or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.